Welcome back inside the Peterborough Memorial Center. It's the first intermission, the first meeting of the season between the Peterborough Petes and Oshawa Generals. I'm Dan Malta, and we will now be joined by Pete Dalladay and Scott Arnold for 2 Up, 1 Down, a special edition. Normally we'd have the Peterborough Petes alumni update or spotlight at this spot in the broadcast, but we're going to zoom past that because we're going to be talking about a lot of Peterborough Petes alumni and a lot of Oshawa Generals alumni. With it being rivalry week, I thought it would be fun to talk about some all-time starting sixes for both the Peterborough Petes and Oshawa Generals. And guys, before we see your list, we're going to start with Scott, then Pete, then we'll come back down to me. But what went into your decision-making?
I just kind of looked at I've got favorite players that I like to watch for both teams over the years, but I kind of built this on guys who went on to make good careers after, but then also guys who had good junior careers, and just sort of combined what I thought would be a good combination of players. There was that was kind of my thought process into it. I didn't just look and say who are the best players to ever play or who are my favorites to ever play for both of these teams. I did put some thought into it, Dan.
I went a little different route on some of the choices. I went back and I picked players that I remember stepping up in games, Oshawa versus Peterborough, whether that be a big playoff series or just guys that played well against the other team and that were big parts of the rivalry. And then some of my choices were just obvious choices of the best to ever play for either team. So a little bit of everything for me.
I love that. I love that criteria. Maybe should have been more specific when I asked you guys for this. But hey, you did a great job. I kind of went with who maybe had the best OHL career in that moment, you know, and what kind of impact they made in the Ontario Hockey League. But that's enough of that. Let's get through to Scott's list. It's an all-time starting six for the Generals and the Petes.
Yeah, so are we starting with the Petes or the Generals, or what way are we
doing?
doing?
Here. Well, whatever you
want.
We'll
go both sides. Okay, we'll start on the Generals on the side. Tony Tanney, the certified sniper, went on to a great NHL career, mostly with Vancouver Canucks. I put him on the wing with Eric Lindros in the middle, and then Dave Anderchuk. I thought that would be a great up-front line. And then on the back end, Bobby Orr, the obvious choice, and then Marty Wilford might be a sleeper pick for people, but an OHL champion with the Generals in the 90s on that team that Mark Savard played for, which a guy's probably going to pop up on one of your lists for sure. But I thought Marty Wilford with Bobby Orr would be a good combo. The size and then the speed and skill of Orr, good combination. And then Kirk McLean, another Vancouver Canuck. I put him between the pipes. I thought that would be the perfect Generals lineup for me. And then on the other side of things, two guys who went on to win 4 straight Stanley Cups with the Montreal Canadiens after their time with the Peterborough Petes, Bob Gainey and Doug Jarvis. They were on a line together with the Canadiens, so I thought, why not put them on a line as well right here with the Peterborough Petes. And then Steve Larmer, who was only here for a season, might as well throw him on there as well. He went on to win a Stanley Cup with the Rangers in '94. And then on the back end, I kept a pair that played together. Chris Pronger, I think, is an obvious choice, but then Brent Tully, I thought the two of them together were probably the best combination of defensemen in my time anyway. Maybe there's better combos before that, but I thought those guys holding on the blue line would be perfect. And then Greg Milne in the pipes.
I love the chemistry on the back end. If you can represent Canada at the World Juniors, you can be on an all-time list. We'll go right through to Pete's now.
Yeah, so we'll go with mine. And, you know, I go with John Tavares. I mean, he was so good and so good against the Petes. He always played well against Peterborough. Mark Savard, the all-time leading goal scorer and point getter, I guess, for the Oshawa Generals. Also lives in my neighborhood here, so I had to go with him in case I run into him. And Daryl LaFrance, I just simply went with points there. I think he's third all-time for points for the Oshawa Generals, and always played well against the Petes. On defense, my guy Bobby Orr, pretty obvious there. Joe Sorella, who I believe spent a brief time helping coach the Petes here for a little bit too, but always seemed to, you know, be involved here. That was a tough one. And I went with Freddie Braithwaite in goal. You know, Oshawa's had some good goaltenders over the years, but he stepped up in that Memorial Cup win. I think he was a rookie that year, but came out of nowhere and won the big game for the Generals with Eric Lindros. Of course, Eric could be on that list. There's so many guys. It's so tough. On the Peterborough side, again, this is where I went with who I thought played really well against the Generals. Spent a lot of time in the penalty box in Peterborough-Oshawa games as well. Doug Evans racked up a lot of points for the Peterborough Petes. Mike Ricci, again, he had to play a couple years against Eric Lindros. They went head-to-head That could have easily been Eric Stahl. That could have been 14 other guys, but I had to pick somebody. Mickey Redmond, just going back a little bit, back into the 60s for Mick there on defense. I also went with Chris Pronger, as Scott did, but I went with Sean Evans. Not Sean Evans, the lacrosse player, though Sean Evans, the lacrosse player, did play 3 games for the Petes, but Sean Evans, one of the leading defensemen all time for the Peterborough Petes back in the 80s when goals, a lot of games were 7-8 goals. He put up a lot of points. And I couldn't decide between these guys. Kay Whitmore and Rod Tugnut were a 1-2 punch. Probably Scott talked about a 1-2 punch on defense with Pronger and Tully. These guys were just 1A and 1B for a lot of years and picked up a lot of wins against not only the Oshawa Generals but all around the Ontario Hockey League. But that's a tough task you gave us, Dan.
It really is. And Ron Tugnut, I believe, coaching in the Peterborough minor hockey system. So. Yeah, a lot of great options for both teams. For mine, a lot of these are going to be similar, but so I had Tavares on the wing because I know he played wing with the with the London Knights at the end of his junior hockey career. He may have dabbled on the wings a little bit with the Oshawa Generals as well, but Eric Lindros, undeniable up the middle. I know Mark Savard has the points record for the Generals, but what a force Lindros was when he played junior. Rick Middleton, a captain of the Boston Bruins, a guy who went on to a great career. He had 137 points in 1973 with the Oshawa Generals. So not much you can do to top that season. On the back end, I have the same as you, Pete. Bobby Orr, undeniable. Joe Sorella as well, Jens captain, World Junior Championship, first-round pick of the Colorado Rockies. Then in between the pipes, it's Jeff Hackett, 1987 OHL champion. So there you go. It doesn't get any better than that. For the Petes, this might be the controversial one for everybody, Nick Robertson. But in the 1920 season, which didn't come to fruition thanks to COVID, he had 55 goals through 46 games. Who knows what he was on pace for? But that was certainly one of the all-time great Peterborough Petes seasons. Steve Yzerman up here in the rafters at the PMC, Detroit Red Wings legend, Hockey Canada legend, Tampa Bay Lightning GM legend as well, and then Mickey Redmond, a guy who's also up on the wall here at the PMC and a broadcasting legend. Perhaps he joins a guy like Gary Green in that category as well, and Greg Millen, we can't forget about them, who went on to broadcast NHL games. Chris Pronger doing the same right now. He's on the back end, that big body. I thought about matching him up against Eric Lindros, and that would have been a war all day long. And then Larry Murphy to move that puck up the ice. Zach Burke, the goalie, the OHL goalie of the year, OHL overager of the year as well. Mix in a championship there. And now, guys, I have a bit of a surprise for you. So we'll get to this. I didn't ask for your information on this one, but this is we can undeniably say that those games would be fun. But if we want to watch the world burn, maybe this would be the roster. What do you guys think of this one?
Who made this roster?
That was a guy named Dan who thought it might be interesting to take a peek at what would really happen if things got heated.
Wow.
A lot of names that like Ben Eager had 795 OHL penalty minutes. Mitch Lamoureux, 5'5", 183, but 275 penalty minutes in one season, paired with 121 points. Dean Morton on the back end from Peterborough. Bob Stewart went on to be an NHL captain as well. Nathan Parrott, remember him with the Leafs? He was a guy who liked to chuck his knuckles. And then Sean Thornton, Boston Bruin, Florida Panther, now an NBA executive. Then Rob Murray there on the back end. 10 seasons as a captain in the AHL, back when the AHL was kind of the jungle. And then Ty Domi, another guy who's just undeniably tough. Matt Kirkner and Barclay Plager. 574 PIMs in the OHA. So, guys, your thoughts on the all-time chaos game?
I'll add 2 to the Pete side just quickly. I'm going to go add Stan Jonathan to that list and Chris King on the Peterborough side.
Yeah, 2 guys for sure. Well, we're lucky we picked our teams because that chaos team, they'd be in the box all night, so we would need our lines to follow up.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for your input on that. A lot of fun. We'll be right back for the second period between the Peterborough Petes and Oshawa Generals. You're watching the Coach Go OHL Game of the Week on your TV.